I couldn't sleep. I follow Twimbos, Zimbabwean Twitter users, and am part of several WhatsApp groups, none of which has anything to do with politics, yet all were a flurry of news, real or fake. Family members on the ground were less sure of what was happening, while those in the diaspora were supplying the information. It was surreal. President Robert Mugabe, who had been in power for 37 years, was under house arrest. The military said they had taken over the country, but it was not a coup. While the uncertainty was unsettling, there was reason to hope. I was born and raised in Zimbabwe, which gained its independence in 1980 after more than a decade of civil war. I grew up in the 1980s euphoria of a newly free country where former Rhodesian companies, schools, and houses were taken over by black Zimbabweans. The history of my country loomed over me, but I had a good childhood. Zimbabwe became known as the breadbasket of Africa. We exported maize and tobacco, among other goods. Our education remained British-centered. Our school desks still had 1950s-era ink bottle holes. With one foot we were marching to a future of success while the other firmly held to the past colonial influence and tribal tensions. In this seemingly idyllic life for which Zimbabweans had fought and died, cracks emerged. There was still the question of how to silence the opposition party, Zimbabwe African People's Union, which was mainly populated by the minority Ndeb tribe. The main party, Zimbabwe African National Union, was made up of mostly the majority Shona tribe. From 1983 to 1987, through a series of military actions called Gukarayandi, tens of thousands of Ndebels were killed in the region of Matabeleland. In the capital, Harare, our lives stayed the same though my aunt and uncle moved from the Matabeleland capital, Bulawayo, to Harare because of the unrest. I was too young to know the details. We heard rumors, but Mr. Mugabe was popular at home and abroad, so we ignored them. Joshua Komu, ZAPU's leader, escaped the country for a time. In 1987, an agreement was signed between the two parties, and Mr. Komu became vice president. There were a few scandals in the 1990s involving ministers stealing money in a car scheme. A minister was said to have committed suicide over it, while others resigned. Our lives continued in a flourishing Zimbabwe. In 1991, the World Bank started the Economic Structural Adjustment Program, which led to the devaluation of the Zimbabwean dollar. The creeping change was upon us. Discontent led to protests and eventually farm invasions. White farmers and the young fled the country en masse, resulting in barren land and a missing generation. I left Zimbabwe after high school for university, dismayed by the lack of job prospects in a nation that had the highest literacy rate in Africa. The Zimbabwe of my youth is no more. Over the years I returned, and my heart sank every time. In 2008, the opposition leader Morgan Tsvangirai won the presidential election but was forced into a power-sharing agreement with Mr. Mugabe.